In the Korean Demilitarized Zone, the most heavily fortified border on Earth, a single tree nearly sparked a second Korean War. This is the story of Operation Paul Bunyan, a massive show of military force over a single poplar tree that stood in the way of a clear line of sight. The year is 1976, 33 years after the Korean War. Armistice, the DMZ, is a tense but relatively stable standoff. Within this zone lies the Joint Security Area, or JSA, a small patch of land where North and South Korean forces stand face to face. This time, however, things were different. A group of North Korean soldiers, led by Lieutenant Pak Chul, appeared and ordered them to stop. Pak claimed the tree was personally planted and nurtured by Kim Il-sung. Captain Boniface ignored the demand and ordered his men to continue working. Suddenly, Pak yelled, "Kill the bastards!" and about 30 North Korean soldiers armed with clubs, pipes, and the axes dropped by the work crew swarmed the UN detail. In the brutal one-sided attack, Captain Boniface and his platoon leader, First Lieutenant Mark Barrett, were killed. Several other American and South Korean soldiers were wounded. The event became known as the Axe Murder Incident. On August 18th, a routine task was scheduled. A 100-foot poplar tree was blocking the view between two United Nations command checkpoints. A team of American and South Korean soldiers, led by U.S. Army Captain Arthur Boniface, went out with 5 Korean Service Corps personnel to trim it. It was a standard procedure, something that had been done before without incident. The world was stunned. The attack was a brazen and savage violation of the Armistice Agreement. Washington was furious. The initial reaction from some in the Ford administration was to launch immediate, punishing airstrikes against North Korea. Policymakers debated fiercely. Some advocated for a full-scale military response, while others cautioned against escalating the situation into a full-blown war. President Gerald Ford and his national security team, including Henry Kissinger, knew they had to respond decisively. But without triggering a catastrophic conflict, the challenge was to demonstrate overwhelming strength and resolve, while leaving the North Koreans a way to back down without losing face entirely. The decision was made. They would not just trim the tree, they would cut it down completely. This mission was codenamed Operation Paul Bunyan. It was designed to be far more than a landscaping job. It was a carefully choreographed display of overwhelming military might, intended to intimidate North Korea and reassert American and South Korean dominance in the JSA. The planning was meticulous and swift. The operation was set for August 21st, just 3 days after the attack. The forces assembled were staggering. The ground element consisted of a convoy of 23 American and South Korean vehicles. Inside were 16 U.S. Army engineers armed with chainsaws, accompanied by a 64-man South Korean Special Forces team, all experts in Taekwondo and hand-to-hand combat, carrying M16 rifles and M79 grenade launchers. Another U.S. infantry company and South Korean reconnaissance troops were also on standby, ready to reinforce the JSA. But the real show of force was in the air and on the periphery. Flying directly overhead were 20 utility helicopters and 7 Cobra attack helicopters. At 7 a.m. on August 21st, Operation Paul Bunyan commenced. The convoy rolled into the JSA, and the engineers disembarked, their chainsaws roaring to life. The South Korean Special Forces took up defensive positions, forming a perimeter around the work crew, their weapons ready. They had even planted Claymore mines on the bridge of no return, rigged for remote detonation in case North Korean tanks tried to cross. Further back, B-52 bombers from Guam, escorted by USF for Phantom jets and South Korean F-5 South, flew menacingly up the peninsula towards the DMZ. The aircraft carrier USS Midway was moved just offshore, its battle group ready for action. F-111 bombers were on standby at a base in Idaho, ready to fly to Korea. On the ground, all U.S. and South Korean forces along the DMZ were placed on high alert, with artillery and tanks aimed and ready to fire. It was the highest state of military readiness since the Korean War. The message was unmistakable: interfere and face total annihilation. The entire operation to cut down the tree took just 42 minutes. The convoy left a single 6-foot-high stump as a deliberate symbol of their action. As the last truck left the JSA, the massive air armada turned back, and the forces stood down from high alert. The crisis was over. The United States and South Korea had made their point without firing a single shot in anger. The North Koreans were caught completely by surprise. They quickly mobilized about 150 to 200 soldiers who rushed to the scene armed with machine guns and automatic rifles. In the aftermath, North Korea found itself in a difficult position. Faced with the undeniable reality of American military superiority and global condemnation, they blinked. In a rare and unprecedented move, Kim Il-sung issued a message through the Joint Armistice Commission expressing regret over the incident. While it stopped short of a full apology, it was a significant concession from the typically defiant regime. The message stated, "It was a good thing that no big incident occurred at Panmunjom for a long time. However, it is regretful that an incident occurred in the Joint Security Area, Panmunjom this time." Operation Paul Bunyan is now a classic case study in military deterrence and crisis management. It demonstrated how a calculated and overwhelming show of force can achieve a strategic objective without escalating into a wider conflict. It restored the credibility of the UN command and sent a powerful message to Pyongyang that acts of aggression would be met with an unyielding and overpowering response. The stump of the poplar tree remained for years, a silent monument to the 2 officers who lost their lives, and a stark reminder of how close the Korean peninsula came to another devastating war over a simple act of defiance. The incident led to a significant change in the JSA, with the military demarcation line being formally marked, separating forces to prevent such close-quarters confrontations from happening again. It stands as a testament to the fragile peace and the constant tension that defines one of the world's most dangerous flashpoints. They watched in disbelief from their guard posts as the massive poplar tree was systematically cut down. They set up machine gun positions, but never fired a shot. They were faced with a force so overwhelming, so prepared for escalation, that any resistance would have been suicidal. The American and South Korean soldiers on the ground stood their ground. A picture of calm resolve, ready for a fight that thankfully never came. Thank you for watching. If you found this piece of history interesting, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories from the annals of military history. We'll see you next time.